This show is brought to you by PivX, private instant verified transactions. With its groundbreaking zero-coin staking and masternodes, PivX is the top privacy currency. Feel free to trade some on Binance or Bittrex. And for more information, go to www.pivex.org. Welcome back to ITK Crypto, part of SmartReach at SmartReach1 on Twitter. This is our weekly news roundup with me, Tom White, and of course, Cryptosi, who's going to be answering all the tough questions and making sure that you know exactly what is going on in the world of cryptocurrency. Hello, Cryptosi.
Hey, Tommy, how you doing, mate?
I am very, very well. However, from what I'm reading, Cryptosi, Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash are not so well. Okay, now I read a headline saying what caused Ethereum Bitcoin Cash to plunge 15% in less than 4 hours. What happened?
Well, the same as always is market forces, I would say. And as I've said before, with crypto being so young, there still are only a handful of big players. So the money is not quite distributed as far as it should be. And so if a big seller decides to sell, the price does fall like that. The good thing about it is that usually it's picked up by multiple hands. And so the distribution is getting better during these falls. That's I guess the good way to look at it.
So I suppose if you are maybe a novice to cryptocurrency, that headline would scare you.
Yeah, of course. But like I always say, if you're a novice, the idea is really that you're looking more long-term than short-term. If you're going to try to make money in the next 2 weeks, then yeah, good luck. You may as well buy a lottery ticket because you've got pretty much 50-50 chance. Who knows what will happen within the next week. So I always say look long-term. And if you look over the long-term of both, especially Ethereum, it's performed amazingly. I can't think of many other things that have performed better than Ethereum that you could have put your savings into if you got in early, other than maybe Bitcoin. So although Ethereum's had a tough drop, Bitcoin Cash has had a tough drop, but I don't think it's the end of the road for either of them. Bitcoin Cash is in probably a much more difficult position than Ethereum. Ethereum, I would say, has got a lot more legs in it. Bitcoin Cash is, over the short term, in a much more difficult position, I would say.
Why is that then for Bitcoin Cash?
I think it's because it doesn't do anything that's drastically different to Bitcoin. And if you're not doing something that's drastically different, you need to be doing the same thing a lot better. With Ethereum is like a global computer. So it does something very, very different to Bitcoin. I would argue that Ethereum is not a good use case for Ethereum is not actually a currency. So it's very different to Bitcoin in that sense. And because of that, I would think Ethereum has still got a long way to go. There's going to be more demand for people to have decentralized applications, and therefore there's a massive room for Ethereum to grow into, and it's still the leader in that sector. Bitcoin Cash has probably got a bigger sector to grow into because currencies are bigger than decentralized applications, but Bitcoin Cash is not the leader in that field. And technologically, I don't think it's even in the top 10. Now, you add that to the fact that it doesn't have the network effect that its bigger parent currency, which is Bitcoin itself, it doesn't have the network effect that Bitcoin has. You add those two things together, and I think it's a recipe for a tough time. At least I will say that much. It's definitely a recipe for a tough time.
Okay, well, we're going to stick with Ethereum actually, because the next topic we're going on to is this: Ethereum classic hacker stole 54,200 ETC from cryptoexchangegate.io. And I've got a bit more information here where it was gate.io confirmed that it had lost about $220,000 worth of Ethereum classic coins, about 40,000 ETC, during an ongoing manipulation of the project blockchain network. I'll just read the next paragraph as well. The exchange confirmed on Tuesday that the Ethereum classic blockchain was under 51% attack, in which a single entity takes control of more than half the network's hash power that allows it to rewrite its transaction history and double spend coins, and identified 3 accounts about the attackers. So what's happened there, and is this a worry? Could people be losing their cryptocurrency?
Right. Okay. So, yes, this is a worry. This is a huge deal. Now, what I have to clarify is that Ethereum and Ethereum Classic are two completely separate projects. So I'll give a brief explanation of how they came to be. So originally there was Ethereum. I believe it started in maybe 2014. They started their tokens, they had their ICO, and they were away. And the chain launched, I think, in 2015. Once the chain had launched, they had this massive hack, which was on probably the biggest ICO and the most promising ICO at the time, which was an ICO called the DAO, the DAO. Now, there were some lines in this code that allowed an attacker to basically wreck the entire thing and make off with a lot of money. I can't remember how much it was at the time, but it was in the hundreds of millions, at least the tens of millions, as far as I can remember. And once this happened, the people at Ethereum got together and they had this huge argument. There was this huge split. Now, when someone hacks one of these chains, there is something that can be done. So, for example, in the case of Ethereum, somebody has hacked it and stolen 100 and something thousand Ethereum, which, let's say, is worth so much millions of pounds. And this could probably wreck the network. This happening could lose a lot of people's belief in the network and a lot of people's belief in the security and the stability of the network. So the two sides of the argument very quickly was, one side said, well, the code is the code. And if the code allowed it to happen, then we shouldn't go back and undo the transactions that had happened. One of the biggest things that people say about Bitcoin and Ethereum, all these currencies, is that they're immutable, meaning that if I make a transaction, that transaction is set in stone. Now, what the guys at Ethereum done when they had this problem is they rolled that transaction back. And the people who didn't believe in the rollback started Ethereum Classic. Now, the people who believed in the rollback that stayed on the main Ethereum chain, they were in the majority. So the new chain is smaller.
This podcast has been brought to you by Rhubarb Media. Rhubarb Media are the branding specialists behind successful crypto projects such as PivX, Vendible, and Libertaria. The Rhubarb style is both loved and respected the world over. So if you want your project to appeal to techies and everyday users alike, give Rhubarb Media a try. You cannot possibly be disappointed. Link is in the description.
With a 51% hack, you have to have 51% of all of the computing power that's going towards securing the network. Now, with the case of a huge network like Bitcoin, that's almost impossible. Some people will say there are cabals that exist of maybe 10 to 15 of the top miners that can come together and do a 51% attack between them. That's another story altogether. But with a smaller currency like Ethereum Classic, to do a 51% attack is not that difficult. It is within the reach of one sole entity if they've got the means and the motivation to do it. And it seems on this occasion, somebody has. So it's not actually Ethereum that got hacked, it's actually Ethereum Classic. Now, the problem with being 51% attacked, it means that anyone who spent money during that time, or any of that money that has been spent during that time, if they roll it back, will become unspent. That's quite a big deal. And Ethereum Classic have proven themselves to be the guys who say, no, we're not doing any rollbacks, which makes this type of network almost like a target for people who are going to do 51% attacks, because you know that they're going to let you get away with it. You know that they're going to allow it. So it is a massive deal, and it shows the vulnerabilities of having, I would say, integrity without the strength to back it up. So Ethereum Classic, they've got the integrity to say that the code is law and we will stand by our transactions, but they don't have the strength in that they don't have the hash power to make these sorts of attacks not worthwhile for someone. And I think it's a big deal. It's very sad to see. It's a very tough situation for them, very tough situation for the exchanges that have lost the money, and very tough situation for anyone holding ETC at the moment. But I still believe that they're on the right track, even though I don't believe it enough to buy into it. I do believe that they're on the right track, and I do believe that that's the right way to handle these situations. But it is bad news. It definitely is.
Okay, well, so that's bad news. This is quite worrying, I would say, as well, Cryptosi. Just moving on to our third topic. I have heard that there's been some sort of a kidnapping. Now, people will be thinking, well, why is he talking about a kidnapping on ITK crypto when this is about cryptocurrency? Well, apparently the kidnappers have requested payment in cryptocurrency. What do you know about that?
Oh, yes. I've got really mixed emotions about this, really mixed emotions. So on one hand, kidnapping that's a human tragedy. So it's something that actually affects people, and it must be a terrible situation for the family to go through and the person who's being kidnapped. So on that side, it's terrible. The cryptocurrency in question is Monero, which is the leading cryptocurrency, definitely in terms of market cap and awareness. It's the most well-known of the privacy coins. Whether or not it's the best is a completely different story, but it is definitely the most well-known. Now, for these criminals to be asking to be paid in Monero, it proves at least that they are confident that the privacy technology around it will hold up, and they'll be able to sell their Monero and convert it into fiat currency, or perhaps they'll just keep hold of it until they want to spend it as Monero. I feel like in that sense, it's possibly even a win for crypto, in the sense that the belief in it is now become so much that people are willing to put their lives on the line for it, or their own freedoms on the line. But on the other side, and the more realistic side, is that it shouldn't take actions like this to prove that this technology works. It would be much better if we could get to a place where we could prove it worked without taking human beings hostage. So it definitely is a terrible situation. But yeah, it's just bad all round, really. It is just bad all round. I would like to see, because my knowledge of Monero tells me that we've got an advent coming up called quantum computing, which will basically revolutionize how powerful computers are. It's not that far away. We'd say maybe the next decade. Now, with quantum computing, it's often said that all of the transactions on Monero will be able to be de-anonymized. So you'll be able to go in there and then see who sent what to where and follow the money, as it were. Now, if these criminals do accept this in Monero, it may be a win for the cryptocurrency in the short term. The good thing is that in the long term, when quantum computing does come around, these guys will more than likely be caught. So if you look at it that way, just trying to put a positive spin on things, it'll be a good thing in the short term. Hopefully the woman is returned safely. The people get their money in the short term. Then 10 years down the line, we can go back and find out who they are and lock them up.
Yeah, well, let's hope for a conclusion to that, certainly, so that everybody is okay. But quite interesting, of course, that it's cryptocurrency that they are asking for, because we've never heard that before. Okay, Cryptosi, we've only had 3 stories today, but there've been 3 big stories, so that's us out of time. There'll be plenty more when we're back next week, and we've got an interview coming up, haven't we? Shortly after this is released, Cryptosi. Who have we got on?
I think our next interview will be with arc.io. They'll be the next one we'll be releasing, so that should be out more than likely on Tuesday coming.
Oh, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We are going to be back with our new service again next week, as usual, and a big thank you to you, Cryptosi.
Thanks a lot, Tommy. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to next week.
This show is brought to you by PivX Private Instant Verified Transactions. With its groundbreaking zero-coin staking and masternodes, PivX is the top privacy currency. Feel free to trade some on Binance or Bittrex. And for more information, go to www.pivx.org.